Barbados is a treaty-based jurisdiction, and we have a number of double taxation agreements, tax exchange information agreement, and of course bilateral investment treaties with countries around the world. And we share with you the list of them. We don't need to get in detail here. But the double taxation treaty in particular and the tax exchange information agreement is very critical because it formalizes relationships between two countries in terms of the ability to share information on taxpayers in respective countries. And certain of the countries that have placed Barbados on their list, we have formal treaty arrangements with 3 of them. Finland, Portugal, and Spain. And certainly, I can always share with you the dates that we had these agreements in place. In terms of Finland, we have had our double taxation agreement in force since August 20th, 1992. In terms of Spain, we've had a double taxation agreement in place since October 14th, 2011. And in terms of Italy, the other one I should have mentioned here, we have had we've initialed the double taxation agreement with Italy since March 27th, 2009. So naturally one would assume that since there are treaties in place with these countries in particular, that they ought to have no issues with Barbados in terms of sharing information, because we are legally bound to share information. What I find very instructive though is that in my checks with the Barbados Revenue Authority, which is the competent authority and the only competent authority in Barbados for collecting tax information and sharing it with third-party countries, the BRA has not received, or nor does it have at this point in time, any outstanding requests for information from any of those countries that have blacklisted Barbados. And therefore I question how Barbados could have arrived on any such list, since we have no evidence that Barbados has been uncooperative. To be uncooperative, you naturally have had, one of the countries naturally have had to make a request of Barbados to furnish information, and Barbados would have had to either be tardy in furnishing that information or refuse to furnish it. And the evidence from our competent authority thus far is that that is not the case. And therefore, on that basis alone, I refute categorically Barbados being placed on any such agenda. The other issue is that as you review this matter, I wish to say that I find difficulty in accepting that this is an official EU position. It really seems to be more a position taken by some of the member states of the EU. And I would say, even though the EU Commissioner has been the one involved, Economic Commissioner really has been the one who's been involved in the process to date, I haven't seen it formally as an EU position. The other issue is that the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, is not associated with this list that has been provided. And that is very instructive, because normally one will look to the OECD tax department for their involvement and their ability to verify such a list. And I can say to you that the OECD has not been sanctioned in this particular list. Barbados is a member of the Global Forum, the 126 member state arrangement that certainly helps to set tax policies with cross-border transactions. And here again, the Global Forum has distanced itself from this particular list. As a matter of fact, I'll share with you a press release that was issued earlier today jointly between the OECD and the Global Forum. And one of the paragraphs clearly stated, as the OECD and the Global Forum, we would like to confirm that the only agreeable assessment of countries as regards their cooperation is made by the Global Forum, and that a number of countries identified in the EU exercise are either fully or largely compliant and have committed to the AEOI, the automatic exchange of information, sometimes even as early adopters. Without prejudice to countries' sovereign positions, we are happy to confirm that these jurisdictions are cooperative and we'd like to commend the tremendous progress made over the past years, as well as the cooperation and integrity of the Global Forum process. We have already expressed our concerns and stand ready to further clarify to the media the position of the affected jurisdictions with regards to their compliance with the Global Forum standards. So there you have it, that the Global Forum and the OECD, and this is signed by Pascal Santamans, who's the director of the tax department in the OECD, and Monica Batia, who's the head of the Global Forum Secretariat. And before joining this press conference, I had a telephone conversation with Monica Batia from the Global Forum Secretariat to ensure that she was aware of Barbados' concerns and to formally get from them a position in terms of this EU Commission list that has been put out there. We're now on the 11th EDF. They're giving great support for the human resource development strategy in Barbados in particular, and certainly through the work of Caribbean Export, our manufacturing and service sector have been given a boost in terms of training of business support organizations and some other direct involvement that we've had. So certainly we can point to very tangible gains from that other relations with the EU, and this certainly will not, to my mind, cause any strain. Hey, look at the US and Antigua, I don't know where you get paid. The reality about it is what we're seeking to do is to ensure that the voice of small international financial centers are heard, that we are consulted, that our rights as sovereign states are also respected. We don't just come and issue a statement about the sovereign state without consulting with them. I think that's one of the points we need to stress. Because we are small, it doesn't mean that we must be ignored. It also means that we are looking more to deepen the level of engagement with these countries. Clearly, we have been doing it perhaps more in a multilateral forum, and obviously there is a need now to do more of it in a bilateral arrangement. And I certainly will be engaging with our Foreign Minister, Maxine McLean, to help us facilitate that as well. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs are definitely very key in helping us to get our message across and facilitating the process.
Difficulties that even the EU is facing, because it is said that it is not an EU list. That's what they've said. However, this has the capacity to influence an EU strategic thinking, and in a sense that is the danger of it, that even though it is not an EU list, it's a platform for good tax, good governance, it's called, but members of that fall within what's called the DG Taxud, which is an EU Commission, part of the EU Commission. So I think that is what needs to be made clear here in terms of the where this particular issue will arise, and what is its influence on future determinations by the EU itself. And I think that's what I think the minister and others will have to raise at the political level as to what is the influence. Because if you read here in the release, it simply says here that as a next step, the Commission recommends that member states would issue an appropriate response. The Code Group's work has delivered successful results to non-EU countries in the past. For example, Switzerland agreed to do some changes, and it has also referred to the fact that, non-cooperative tax jurisdictions would allow them to develop a common EU strategy towards them. So therefore, it's suggesting that though it's not from the EU, it could have influence on a future EU strategy towards these countries. So that's the anomaly in a sense.
The OECD has issued an action plan with a number of items, 15 items, to deal with transparency and greater exchange of information and business purposes and substance in jurisdictions that offer international business and financial services. And in those 15 items, they have not set about to take away the opportunity of people, including individuals and companies, to avoid taxation. So fundamentally, we still have a right to optimize our tax positions. So we are hugely disappointed that we are included on a list which is still proposing to have a legal activity that we're engaging in. Secondly, I think that I would like to throw my support behind Minister Innes in challenging the integrity of the list for the reasons that he outlined earlier as well. We do have a number of members of the EU who are clearly under investigations for a number of very aggressive tax structures. I think in excess of 348 of these similar inquiries, and yet none of those jurisdictions appear on the list of 30 countries that have been named. I do think, however, that there is an opportunity for Barbados in this process, and that is for the countries that have listed us or included us in that list. Most of those are not active trade partners of Barbados. We have countries like Bolivia, Latvia, Slovenia, etc. They are not active trade partners, and I think the opportunity here for us is to, as the Minister said, to engage in bilateral discussions with them, not only to get our names off the list that currently obtains, but demonstrate clearly what the opportunities are for their countries to enter into double taxation and bilateral investment treaties with Barbados, and encourage them to use Barbados in their international business needs. So I think there is an educational opportunity here that we should not lose sight of.
Process of setting up a secretariat which will look at several issues. It will look at doing the research that's necessary to buttress the lobbying efforts and the advocacy efforts of the Caribbean countries, because Barbados, of course, is one of the key countries that this will affect, but it will also affect Bahamas. Grenada is on the list, St. Kitts, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Antigua and Barbuda, as well as Trinidad and Tobago. So it's across the board. It's an issue that is going to affect all the countries within the region. It will also affect the overseas dependent territories that we have also been working with, such as Cayman and Bermuda, who have issued their own statements this week. So it's very critical at this stage that we have a rapid response mechanism that's established, which we're seeking to do, and we will have ready hopefully by September. Secondly, not only the research but data gathering. One of our biggest weaknesses as the Caribbean, as we know, is the issue of data gathering. Getting the kind of intelligence before this happens, that it is actually going to happen, and trying to preclude it, or at least to the extent, be aware of what is happening. Thirdly, looking at the issue of advocacy on a global scale. One of the difficulties, if you Google right now, and we must know that all our children Google, everybody Googles, the first thing that's going to come up about Barbados or any financial services economy in this region right now is the blacklist. And that's the biggest danger of this, that when something occurs, people are going to try to find information on a country, and the first thing that's going to be at the top of the list is this. We have to have a response mechanism that removes that, or at least challenges that, as quickly as this occurs.